All right, fellow med students, grab your coffees, energy drinks, whatever you need, and let's get dialed in. Tomorrow is the massive anatomy exam on the GI tract, and listen, we are absolutely going to ace this thing. Welcome to our late-night explainer cram session. Tonight, we're mapping the human digestive system, taking a complete physical tour, literally from the mouth all the way down to the anus. We're going to hit every major organ, highlight those VIP accessory organs, and basically lock in the crucial physiological processes happening at every single stop. We have a ton of ground to cover before the sun comes up, so let's dive right in.
Okay, so here's our study syllabus for the night. We'll start with the anatomy exam blueprint to get our core concepts down tight. Then, we take the upper tract tour, followed by a look at the accessory organs. After that, we navigate the lower tract, and we'll finish the whole shebang with a rapid-fire final exam review.
Section 1. The Anatomy Exam Blueprint. Before we start physically moving down the tube, we've got to memorize the 6 primary digestive processes. Trust me, this list is guaranteed to be a huge part of tomorrow's exam. First, we have ingestion, just taking the food in. 2 is secretion of water, acid, and enzymes. 3 is mixing and propulsion, keeping things moving along. 4 is digestion, both the mechanical and chemical kinds. 5 is absorption, pulling nutrients directly into the blood and lymph. And finally, 6, defecation. As we travel down the GI tract, which is essentially one continuous hollow muscular tube, we need to mentally check off these 6 mandatory processes at every single stop.
Now, the structural blueprint for the tube itself is incredibly consistent. From the inside out, the entire GI tract shares 4 fundamental histological layers. The mucosa is that innermost lining touching the food. Then you have the submucosa, which is a connective tissue layer totally packed with blood vessels and nerves. Next up is the muscularis, the primary muscle layer that actively drives motility. And finally, the serosa wraps it all up as the outermost protective layer. Just keep this 4-layer core in the back of your mind because it's a structural foundation for literally everything we're about to review.
Moving on to Section 2, the upper tract tour.
Using our late-night study blocks, let's map our physical descent from top to bottom. And just to be clear, these are our study hours, not the actual transit time of your dinner. Hour 1 of our session, we're hitting the mouth, where ingestion and the initial breakdown kick off, and then we pass through the pharynx, the throat area that transitions the food downward. Hour 2 of our cram session takes us down the esophagus, a collapsible muscular tube. And Hour 3 lands us squarely in the stomach, our temporary storage and mixing chamber.
Now here is a key exam vocab word you need to star, highlight, whatever you gotta do. Deglutition. It's just the fancy scientific term for swallowing. This is exactly how the mixing and propulsion process moves the food bolus down from the mouth to the stomach, and it happens in 3 specific stages. You've got the voluntary stage in the mouth, the involuntary pharyngeal stage, where the epiglottis snaps shut so you don't choke, and finally the involuntary esophageal stage using those wave-like peristaltic contractions. Let's drop down into the stomach. The stomach is an absolute powerhouse for the digestion process. For the exam, you have to contrast how the stomach acts as a physical mixing chamber using mechanical waves, basically churning everything up, to create a liquid paste called chyme, while simultaneously executing intense chemical digestion, using powerful acids and enzymes to break down those molecules. It's doing both at the exact same time.
The real money for the exam is knowing exactly what's being secreted here, checking off the secretion process from our master list. In the stomach, hydrochloric acid, or HCl, creates a highly acidic environment. We also have pepsin, which is an enzyme that specifically begins the digestion of proteins. And we've got gastric lipase, which gets right to work digesting triglycerides, or fats. Seriously, memorize the specific table tonight.
All right, Section 3, the accessory organs.
Let's briefly shift our focus away from the main tube itself to the crucial accessory organs. While they don't form the continuous hollow tube, think of them as the VIP guest stars of digestion. They inject the necessary mechanical and chemical aids into the system, and they are absolutely critical for breakdown. Up top, we have the teeth and tongue for mechanical breakdown, and the salivary glands releasing saliva and initial enzymes. Further down, we've got the massive liver, which produces bile and processes nutrients, the gallbladder storing and concentrating that bile, and the pancreas, which secretes super powerful pancreatic juice.
I really want to punch this specific high-yield exam number into your brain. 1,000. 1,000 milliliters. The liver produces up to 1,000 milliliters of bile every single day. That bile flows into the gallbladder for storage and concentration, and it's essential for the emulsification of fats. If you see a multiple-choice question tomorrow about fat emulsification, I want you to immediately think bile, liver, and gallbladder. Don't even second-guess it.
Now for the heavy-hitting enzymes found in pancreatic juice. These are absolute must-knows for the chemical digestion portion of the test. Pancreatic amylase targets carbohydrates and starches. Trypsin breaks down proteins, and pancreatic lipase digests fats and lipids. Basically, the pancreas is injecting these directly into the small intestine to do the heavy lifting of chemical digestion.
Section 4. The lower tract. Let's get back to the main tube.
We have arrived at the small intestine, which is made up of the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. The absolutely crucial point here is that the small intestine is the undisputed champion of the absorption process. This is the ultimate hub. It's perfectly adapted for the majority of chemical digestion and pulling those small molecules right out of the tract and into the blood and lymph.
To achieve all that massive absorption, our anatomy uses a brilliant trick, drastically increasing the surface area. You definitely need to know the definitions of villi and microvilli. Villi are these finger-like extensions of the mucosa, and microvilli are tiny projections right on the plasma membranes of the absorptive cells themselves. Together, they radically increase the surface area available to pull those vital nutrients out of the tube and into our bodies. Let's trace the final pathway through the large intestine. We start at the sac-like cecum and appendix located just below the ileocecal valve. Then we travel up, across, and down the colon, so that's the ascending, transverse, descending, and sigmoid colon. The colon's primary job is finalizing water absorption and actually forming the waste. Finally, we reach the rectum and the anal canal, which are the final segments leading directly to the exterior.
And that brings us to the literal exit point, the anus, where we cover our final primary process, defecation. You must remember the dual sphincter mechanism here. The internal sphincter is made of smooth muscle, which means it's totally involuntary. You don't control it. But the external sphincter is made of skeletal muscle, meaning it is entirely under our conscious, voluntary control.
Section 5. Final exam review. Let's bring it all home.
Let's rapid-fire connect our master list before we wrap up. Ingestion, that happens in the mouth. Secretion, salivary glands, stomach, pancreas, and liver. Mixing and propulsion, deglutition in the esophagus, churning in the stomach, and motility in the intestines. Digestion, both mechanical and chemical, starts in the mouth, gets really heavy in the stomach, and finishes up in the small intestine. Absorption, championed by the small intestine with water absorbed in the large intestine. And defecation, the anus. Lock this mental checklist in right now.
To end our cram session, let's test your new knowledge with a mock exam question. Think about this carefully. If chemical digestion and fat emulsification completely fail in the small intestine, which accessory organs are likely responsible? Got it? Well, for chemical digestion, you're looking at the pancreas and its enzymes like lipase and amylase. For fat emulsification, you're definitely looking at the liver producing bile and the gallbladder storing it. If you nailed that, you are completely ready to crush this anatomy exam tomorrow. Keep studying, stay focused, and I'll see you on the other side of the test.